Hey, what is up, everybody? Hunter Rel back with another one. Today, joined with my very good friend VGF, or Video Game Freak. VGF is one of the first people that I met when I got into NFTs specifically, and we spent a ton of time on spaces together on X. And then as I transitioned into other types of content, he was right there in my corner supporting me and giving me advice. And yes, he's a great guy. I absolutely love him. And yeah, it's a good conversation between two friends, almost kind of catching up. And I enjoy it. It's a good time. He's uniquely positioned from his time being one of the earliest employees at PixelVault and helping them build through the years. And he has a lot of insight into the gaming sector, but also has seen a lot of what works and what doesn't work for many companies because of his experience. So I hope it's useful to you. As always, thank you to you for tuning in to this episode. It means a ton, and I hope you enjoy it. Here's VGF. All right, live now with VGF, my good friend, one of my oldest friends in the crypto space. We cut our teeth together on Twitter Spaces back in the day, and here we are, finally reunited to do some content together.
A little
You
bit.
have been on, I think, some early streams when we were figuring things out, but I get to have a one-on-one conversation, talk gaming, AI, the market. We get into a little bit of Pixel Vault. We'll talk about Yaps. I know Yaps has been a huge subject lately. Um, and for those who are listening, the most fun part about this is live while we're having this conversation. Jay Powell up on stage for the FOMC. Possibly, hopefully, going to keep some market stability here and take some fear out of the streets. And
Keep some life going, yeah.
I would love to see a rebound into the AI sector. That would make me incredibly happy. Um, right now, currently Bitcoin at $102,200. Um,
We'll see what it is by the end of the stream.
yeah. This could be one of the either reddest or greenest price discrepancies from any stream I've done so far. I've had a few where I had Luca on and Pengu between the beginning and the end of the stream had gone up like 20%, and I was like, that was all me. Obviously not me, but
Opportunity cost,
yeah.
yeah.
But I'm hoping that Bitcoin here can put in a big green candle and we can sit here and be happy. VGF, for those who don't know who you are, let's just start there. Who are you? What's your background? What's your journey like in this fantastic space we operate in?
Yeah, so, VGF stands for Video Game Freak. It was my, handle from gaming and Web2 that I brought into Web3 with me back when I had no as I was stumbling down the rabbit hole of crypto and Web3, I, uh, basically brought my social media with me before I was cognizant of, the many conversations around anonymity, pseudo anonymity, things of that nature. And so early on, I just leaned into it. I didn't really have any bags to speak of when I started out. And so I leveraged that to my advantage. Back in 21, there was a lot of uh, founders, personalities that were really leaning into the anonymity part of the space. And so that was a big differentiator for me and my content in early 21 was that I was fully doxxed and I was happy to hop on videos. I was happy to do the interviews, things like that. And so that was a big, kind of differentiator for me at the time was like just documenting my process, my learnings, stuff that stood out to me. Um, and I have a little bit of a background in emerging tech, operations and marketing, things of that sort from previous life. And so I picked up in the space fairly quickly. I think there was a lot of people in 21 that maybe didn't know that I was just expressing and sharing my learnings along the way. But I actually didn't buy my first crypto until January 1st of 2021, and just went into the deep end very quickly. And so that was, I basically, spent 6, 8 months learning, sharing as much as I could to try and play catch up slash get ahead. And I gave myself basically like a 6 month runway to establish myself, like, and be work like I was working full time in Web3 before I was ever paid to work full time in Web3.
Right.
And yeah, it ended up joining I was consulting, contracting with a bunch of projects, doing Discord builds, social media work, strategy, things like that. Ended up joining PixelVault full time back in August of 21, I think, and been a heck of a 3.5 years since then. But recently had a break with PixelVault. Still incredibly bullish on everything they're doing. I think we'll get into a little bit of that. Um, Still bullish on GG and everything like that. But it's taken me back to my roots. Doing some revisiting of the videogamefreak.com reading list. Going to be doing some more content around what I just kind of musings on the space and things like that. I think one thing that you, Hunter, have tapped into that I think few in crypto are venturing towards is just substantive conversations. That there's a lot of the fluff and the fervor around
Yep.
meme coins and the shitters that are going to do 1,000x's and stuff like that, which is valid. I think that's a very valid
Part of it.
topic in the space. Yeah. But it's not what is attractive to me personally. I don't like to necessarily spend as much of my time in the trenches, so to speak, at least that side. And so I think if you bring interesting people into the room, like into rooms together, you're bound to have interesting conversations. And so it doesn't even matter, what necessarily you're talking about, but there's definitely a desire for more of that kind of content that I intend to tap into.
I love that. Yeah, I think there's always a space or a gap or an area that people can play into. Um, when everybody says like, "Hey, it's too congested," there's no spot for me in the content space. There's always, and
Mhm.
that's particularly because everybody has such a unique and personalized take on how they approach the space or their opinions or what they want to talk about. So I encourage those who are listening to take a moment and if you're considering making content, jump in. I'm glad to see that you're making content again. I've enjoyed it. It's been amazing. Um, I'll plug real quick. If you're watching this on X, uh, we'll be answering the questions, and I hope you go over and hop on to Abstract. We're live there. It's been an incredible streaming experience on Abstract so far. I think we got to talk real quick. We'll get into like the market and some of this other stuff, but content. It's been
Mhm.
Bryson was on yesterday, so for our listeners, they're getting a lot. I'm really
Fresh in the
shoving the
mind.
content kind of side of things down everybody's throats a little bit here, but it has been AI over the last like 2 weeks of participants that we brought on the talk. But Abstract has leaned really heavily into content creation and this content machine. They call it the content flywheel. Um, do you think that that's something that has, the ability to send Abstract into its own kind of league? Do you think it's, gonna be a game changer? Do you think it's just, "Hey, like, they're missing the mark. They're running crazy with this content?"
Well, so I'll a little bit of a barbell there because am I so naive to think or so blindly bullish to think that like, oh, this is absolutely what's going to happen?
Yeah,
No, I'm not.
sure.
Um, but there are a lot, emphasis asterisk, a lot of teams that have tried to crack into the live streaming space. And I think that Igloo, Penguins, Abstract are definitely a very strong team that has a shot of really changing the like key point I see here is the incentive model
Yep.
of live streaming. And so that I think gives them a real shot. Is there still a lot of work to do? Yes, absolutely. I think discoverability needs a lot of work. The recommended feeds only go so far. I think that there's a lot of like custom tailoring filters, things of that sort that I think are seeing the development they've even done thus far, I'm sure are already in the works. But the initial reception, very strong. From live streamers like yourself, a couple of friends that I know that have held streams over there already. I do think they have a shot at really shaking that market up, um, especially around creator incentivization. I think that there's a lot of avenues of content that you can delve into, because like video live streaming, like I personally like that we've already seen people that are over there streaming Valorant, streaming Marvel Rivals, doing crypto content, trading the markets. Like there's a lot of niche within niches in content, and finding what avenue or what you are documenting. Uh, there's a lot of people that are also just hitting go live and letting their computer go as they're going about their day. So I think it's an interesting kind of topic to follow. I don't know that we've seen that breakout moment yet of like, oh, this is it, this is the one. But I definitely think that they're on the right track to, a shakeup,
Yeah,
which is well needed in content creation, like broadly.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. The first in the first 48 hours, some quick statistics here. Um, for the 2.5 hours of streaming that I have personally done on Abstract, it has netted me just under $250 in profit from tipping. Some of that actually from Ethereum and Pengu lowering price probably sets us closer to $300. Um, as well as in the first 48 hours overall, $2.6 million has been tipped, generating
It's
the
nuts.
largest streamer just shy, I believe, of six figures, $100,000, with many streamers within the five-figure range as well. It's incredible to see that we have a lot of money flowing on the tipping side, and we don't normally think about that, but that's, on the content side, like, unless you have a brand deal or some of these things, you just don't see or think about how are you making money. Um, I have 0 brand deals right now. I've said no to everybody. I've said no to I've had a bunch of companies come to me and they're like, "Hey, we'll pay you 5K a month. We just want our logo on the side." I'm good. Uh, I'm doing this myself, future proof, and 555 are footing the bill, which the joke here for anybody that doesn't know, those are both of my companies. It's not like I actually have like sponsors. I'm just promoting, I guess, my stuff. But the tipping's crazy. I
Mhm.
never in a million years would have expected people to be tipping money on a stream. And it actually,
Well,
like,
in like Web 2 content creation, like that's one of the primary sources of revenue. Like it's like YouTube, ad dollars, something like of that sort. Or like you said, like sponsorships and endorsements. If you're not signed to an org getting a paycheck, like there's only so many, like affiliate links,
yep.
right? That's a huge one. Um, but I'm incredibly bullish on experimentation around incentive models,
Mm,
because
yeah.
I think that like the current model is out of whack. It really primarily serves distribution and kind of like the publisher model. Um, but that's something that I'm incredibly bullish on, is really just the experimentation around driving incentives to creators.
Mm,
And I think that abstract in particular is one of the more interesting ones right now.
yeah.
And speaking of, we mentioned it earlier, Kaido.
Yeah, I was gonna say incentivized social, incentivized creation and content. Kaido has been a huge topic here, and we have to dive in deep, which is mainly on the idea of like all of a sudden me tweeting about a company all of a sudden leads to the possibility of getting an airdrop from them, or I get a yap that gives me voting power to vote. Like, it's a very interesting company. I think it's going to be, my prediction stands, I think it'll be one of the largest companies slash one of the most interesting companies to come out of the bear slash into this cycle and stay a player and continuously be a player in the space. Um, I'm curious, how are you approaching it? What are your thoughts? How do you think it becomes, I guess, more powerful and for people?
Well, so I'll start by saying I was a very early vocal critic, because I was less and I was less informed about the project, the company, that kind of stuff. But I was really not as big of a fan of how they handled the rollout, how they did the NFT mint, things of that sort. And I early on, my impression was basically, it's a LLM model doing, social scraping, digging into statistics about, original content distribution, things like that, incentivizing creators to, create and discuss more original topics. Not just the copy pasta shit posting, that kind of stuff. And I think that's great, but like at least initially, early on, I thought like there's no moat here. Like anyone else could spin up, effectively the same social scraping strategy with a better tokenomic model, more incentives, whatever, and just totally vamp that. Learning a little bit more about it, and once it pretty firmly established that it was commanding the mind share in the space, it was like, okay, you have no argument against you. It's just lean in.
Right.
Um, and on top of that, I think that there's a lot of avenues beyond just X, just social, that they can dig into,
Yep.
particularly around video, digging into original content, streaming on other platforms, not just exclusively to X. But I do think that there's a lot of like other routes that they can delve that aren't just the long form content on social media. But I get that, like, given current API restrictions, stuff like that, like it may take some development time. But yeah, again, it's one of those things that I think a lot of creators didn't necessarily see this as an avenue to monetization beyond, if you were already monetizing X,
Right.
which is like a fraction of a percent of
It
creators.
it's so small. There's so few
Yeah.
people doing that.
And so I think this kind of further democratized what people thought they could, monetize their engagement with. And then you get into like, yeah, the voting, people monetizing their voting strategies and things like that, let alone getting further down that rabbit hole of like companies, projects, tokens being able to incentivize engagement based on, current or past actions. I think that's where it gets like really interesting of like, hey, you tweeted about this project, cool. Like that project can, airdrop you for engaging with their style of name of project, insert name here.
Right.
I think it gets really interesting when it's like, okay, we've got a project, say it's in gaming, and you engaged with gaming content. So it's like almost a funnel, or it's like Web2 retargeting for
Yeah.
Web3 media,
Yeah.
and being able to like hyper target those users on chain is really, really interesting.
I think they'll go that direction. I've talked to you a few times, and it's clear that there are a million different directions he can go, and he's being very, very cautious of like how he moves. But it's clear that they have the development power to get to any of them.
Yeah.
Even stuff that I'm like, hey, like I that's probably like a year out, and he was like, no, like that's we could do it, or just we have a process that has to happen first to get there. I was like, okay, I'm bullish. That's amazing to hear. They'll probably add video and live streaming support here shortly, which I'm excited for. But once when they start adding in like, oh, did you use this game? Were you using the game? Did you make content about the game? Did you? What's your transaction action history look like with this? Um, you can. It's very easy to integrate all those things in, and a lot of projects and protocols are reaching out to Cato because I see that. okay, all of a sudden, for the first time ever, there's a bridge and a link between somebody's social identity and their on-chain identity. And
Mm.
how do we reward that slash activate them slash empower, or the best word again, incentivize them. Um, incentivized protocol might be a great terminology to describe what Yaps is, or Cato Yaps. Um, the other side of their product, which is Cato Dashboard, is also very good. I've been enjoying that. It's expensive,
Stats.
but it's worth it if you're gonna really use it. I use it for every interview I do. I do it for every project I before I invest in them. Like even you, I was able to pull up some stuff and just see like, okay, who's tweeting about VGF? What's the most interesting thing he's tweeted about? What's performed the best? What are people thinking? What do they want to know? Can get all of that through Cato, which is pretty powerful.
Yeah. No, I haven't seen the pro dashboard myself, but aside from like a couple screen grabs and stuff, but it
Right.
definitely looks interesting. And I think for people that are using it like you are, that cost is pretty immediately justifiable. For someone that's like trying to see like, hey, do I know I want this? It's a pretty high barrier of entry.
Right. Yeah, it is a high entry. I think it makes sense for the right people.
Yeah.
Um, but on the Yap side, which is I think where 99% of people listening to this are probably gonna wanna go engage, which is it's yaps.kaito, Kaito dot AI. For those who want to go check out the Yaps dashboard, for how they're doing social tracking. Um, One area within that, again, empowering these projects to and these protocols and teams, the gaming space. This is one that you're heavily knowledgeable on. You spent years at PixelVault. Would love to get your gaming take. Bryson yesterday shared his take on it. What is your Web3 gaming rant? I would say.
Um, well, I would say on the medium to long term, which I like to highlight the time scale, like the
You
time
have
frame,
to. You have to.
because even on the timeline, talking markets, anything like that, like it feels like the market is generally a little bearish at the moment, even though we're like 5% off all time high or something like that. Like we're in a very weird part of the market where I think it honestly could go either way. I know that's like, oh yeah, number could go up or down from here. But I think on a medium or long term time frame, Web3 gaming is incredibly bullish. Like
Mm.
you talk about, native ownership of digital assets. Like that's what clicked for me that brought me into the space in the first place. Like anyone that's been in the depths of like traditional gaming for a long time, it's like the censorship, the banning, that you're effectively leasing, like spending real money, but leasing these assets or access to these items in whatever virtual environment you're playing in. The ability to actually own, being able to control where you transact, where you send, where you sell, is a pretty massive shift on like a fundamental level. And so I just in general, broadly, I think medium to long term Web3 gaming does continue to trend positively. I'm incredibly bullish on particularly mobile in relation to Web3. Desktop gaming is still very strong, as strong as it's been. I know that there's like a bunch of market stats about how the gaming cycle ebbs and flows and stuff like that too. But I think mobile gaming in particular, uh, with like blockchain backed Web3 enabled uh, token strategy and things like that, um, it's almost Web3 gaming is inevitable, as the kids say.
It is. It's coming. And like for any other industry too, it feels like it's inevitable, right? Like, are we gonna be like when I go buy my next house, is that gonna be done? Oh, okay, well, I don't know the time frame. That might be, but like at some point when I go to buy a house, right, there will be some Web3 aspect to it in some way, whether that's the title or the insurance or the deed, whatever it might be. We're moving that way. It's inevitable that happens. The same way, you know, the merge of gaming to Web3 and even the financial side of things, being able to take out loans, that most likely is going to happen on Web3 rails. It's just the technology is good. The tech is good.
We
That
like the tech.
we like the tech.
But I think that there's like one other thing there of like within gaming, there's like a really I think there's an inflection point that occurs. There's like a big debate around whether the shift will happen from the top down. You know, companies like Sony, Activision, Blizzard, you know, like Rockstar, when there was a lot of the speculation on whether or not GTA 6 would have, you know, blockchain integration, things like that. Like, do we see these massive corporations shift into blockchain backed assets and things like that? Or do we see it from bottom up, you know, indie startups, you know, things like that that force, you know, the market kind of in that direction? And I think it's both. I think that it's not one or the other. It's that both are needed, and that eventually, you know, we may have the Among Us style moment where this indie game reaches absolute, you know, peak Web 2 adoption that drives a lot of people to Web 3 onboarding.
without even
I
knowing
think
it
it's
either.
also, huh?
Without even knowing it too is probably gonna.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
they're
and
not.
it's only very recently that we've had, you know, like the third webs, the privies, the, you know, the kind of Web 2 mobile email sign in wallet generation, you know, non-custodial ownership that you can access very easily without, you know, needing to go the sex to dex to, you know, custodial, you know, non-custodial wallet route.
Yep.
Um, and so like I think that is a massive development that we've seen, you know, from where we were in 21 to now.
Yep.
Is the barrier of entry is eh, incredibly lower than it was. And you know, now we have games that are being developed, you know, start to finish with that in mind, with mobile experience, with Web 2 traditional gamer onboarding. Um, Instead of just those targeted to participants already in Web3, which is like a niche within a niche.
Yep.
And we got to think of like motivations. Most people engaging in Web3 already are probably monetarily uh, uh, in, inclined. They're here to make
Yep.
money. They're here to farm an airdrop. They're here to, you know, earn assets and sell them on the market. But a Web 2 gamer, I think, has a much different motivation of why they play a game. I mean, I'm a prime example of that. Like, there's been a lot of Web 3 games up until this point where people will ask me, you know, have you tried this? Are you playing that? You know, whatever. And I'm like, no, honestly, I'm playing Fortnite. I'm playing Apex. I'm playing Marvel Rivals because the amount of time that I have to game, uh, I I would rather have the amount of fun that I have playing those games than the fun lost for whatever amount of dollars earned.
Yep.
So until we get to a closer alignment of like all other things equal, am I having the same amount of fun playing a Web 3 game as I am, you know, a Web 2 game? Then of course I'm going to choose the Web 3 game where I have native ownership, can, you know, earn and, you know, potentially extract some of that value back that I spend in game.
Right.
But until then, I'm happy to continue spending my dollars for the amount of fun that I'm having.
Right. I think the big part there is like for us to even get to that like point of like use, right? We have to have that game. There's going to be a game, a moment where it's like it happens. I thought big time was gonna be it. I think their marketing, the way they went about their marketing campaign, just felt like super like one shot of like, all right, we're gonna pay all these content creators to come make, and that should keep people there. But it just, I think it's hard. Like the flywheel from like content creation to keeping things exciting to like it has to have that stickiness to it. Um, I mean, look, I thought Fall Guys was a great game. Super fun. Played it for like 2 weeks and then I never touched it again.
Mhm.
And I think it's because I think I come back to all this. My friends weren't there, right? Like the reason I pick up Call of Duty or Fortnite and I go back to it is I like Justin Taylor's a great example. I am not like a big gamer by any means, but like I will pick up Fortnite to go play with him almost every day like over the summer because he was there and I wanted to go talk to him, have fun, and like our friends would hop on, but my friends are there. And Web3 gaming, I think for the outsiders, it's a lot of people that come in and they're like, well, it's just me. I have to convince my friends to come in. We need that moment where like everybody's in one spot.
Well, and I think we have seen some, experiments in the right direction. You look at Shrapnel, you look at Off the Grid. On the mobile side, I think what Infinigods and that team is doing is incredibly strong. There's definitely some, projects that are chipping away at progress. And I think that there is uh, a lot of development being done that like eventually one of these at bats, you see enough strikes and you're bound to make contact at some point. Um, but I think like well-intentioned teams, projects that are doing good work across a long enough time frame, one of them's bound to catch.
You do for like that specific team or overall.
In general, but like I think that that team in particular is
I
particularly positioned to
we're
do well.
obviously dancing around like us like PixelVault is one of those teams that has just been they've been trying. They've been throwing the dartboard has a million darts around it, right? And they still have yet to have that bullseye moment. Um I without again, without getting into like the nitty-gritty here, like PixelVault specifically, they keep trying, they keep iterating. Some might say pivoting, which I think in some senses, yes, like there have been pivots, and I think that they've been smart from a perspective on the ones that were like, hey, fundamentally this game mechanic or this style or this incentive, like how we're incentivizing the use of the protocol doesn't make sense. We're going to go this direction because we got feedback and we learned and we know this is the right direction. That's great. Um, I'm curious on how you see their future, and again, not looking for inside information, not looking for I'm just curious from like you, VGF as a person, how you see a company that's struggling to find that like moment, how they have to approach or how you think they should approach that.
Well, one, like bullish on the founders, like
Love Sean.
G Funk, yeah, Sean G Funk is like the tenacity of that man. Like you talk about experiencing highs and lows
Hell and
from
back. That man goes to hell and back on a weekly basis.
yeah, and the tenacity of that leadership team is incredibly strong. Going from you know literally Punk's comic of like developing out this mechanism for generating of IP based on-chain assets, the development of Meta Hero, always kind of at the edge of like pushing the envelope of what's possible on chain. A lot of like unique on-chain mechanisms and development behind that, pivoting or developing in the direction of gaming, going all in on gaming, into now what is Reboot and the platforms being built upon it. Um, I think that there's it, a lot of like good work, good genuinely well-intentioned work that's been done on like battle plan. You look at Top Trader, Chimpers, others being developed on Reboot as a platform, showing it's resilience and flexibility, being able to build, uh, you know, build these on chain, chains of value from being able to like wager on either your or others' gameplay. I think that there's a lot that can still be done there. Um, and to be like full disclosure, I still have a very large bag of PixelVault still contributing when and where I can to reboot. Um, but yeah, I think that it's one of those things that it's a tough nut to crack. There's more teams than any of us could count that have taken their crack at it and are not, no longer around anymore.
Right.
And I think there is something to be said for those teams that are still trying, whether or not they've, hit that home run or had that massive success. Just being around and taking your lumps and, continuing to iterate and try, I think is a, honorable endeavor, and that broadly all of us should be in support of that.
Hmm.
That there's it there are so many teams that have faded off into the sunset and you'll never hear from again, that for those that are still around, still trying, even if mistakes have been made along the way, the respect is earned.
Respect is earned. Yeah, I think you have to admire that and respect that. It's a tough journey. And I think anybody who's going to build in this space has to be prepared for equal amounts of roses as they are as rocks. I've said this a lot over the last week here. I've watched founders of really great products and great protocols get absolutely just slammed, and they still show up and they still build, and you have to respect that because numerous times we've seen the opposite of that, which is they just, they dust their hands off and they say, I'll catch you on the next one. And we seem to be okay with that.
Pivoting to AI,
Yeah. Uh,
pivoting to Web 2.
it's crazy. Good founders. You got to highlight good founders. Another good founder that both of us apparently admire. And even to make this better is it's sitting right here on the desk alongside yours. This is iteration 3 for those who don't know. Iteration 3, 9DCC, a great founder, G Money, who has been building this company for the last like 2 years. Amazing fashion Web3 based company with Web3 integration. Um, it amazing, shows up every day, pushing the space forward. A great steward and advocate of the space. You love to see it.
Yeah. Well, and like he's been a massive part of my journey into crypto too. From his thesis, early 21 about CryptoPunks, learning about his kind of following how he carries himself in the space, both on kind of like the angel and VC investing side of things, but also how he carries himself as like a personal brand, and how he presents. I think the word you use there is really fitting, like a steward of the space. Um, he's kind of a rare exception to the rule of where like I think he presents himself well, not only as his personal brand and things like that, but also his portfolio companies. Um, and when we had an early collaboration with him with PixelVault, in the Adidas drop, that was a really great learning experience, and kind of just further cemented my opinion of G Money and how he moves through the space. And so, yeah, love that team. Work with them every chance that I can. And yeah, just I'm a fan of. I got like my bomber jacket hanging over in the corner. I think I have another one that I'm going to order at some point, but um,
Yeah,
I think
I'm
again,
up
what
to, like,
they're
35 pieces from him or something stupid like that.
yeah, I know
I
you were on the black boxes.
Yes, yeah, I think once you add that in, it's, like, over 50 actually,
It's
pieces
quite
and
a
I
few.
need it's quite a few. Well, I guess
Are you scanning them every day?
I need to actually, I'm not, I don't even know if this is I don't even know if these hat I know this hat is. I'm not sure if this hat and again, you can literally just take your phone and tap it. I don't know if it's gonna oh, wait, it has to be open,
Yeah.
maybe?
But anyway, I think
Yeah,
that
there you
there's,
go. It shows up, you gotta be tapping, you gotta be doing your thing.
yeah, getting
Man,
in and playing the game.
these streams I've been doing, they've been so, like, professional and on the spot, and the last few days, I've been all over the place. I can't get the hat to tap, can't ugh, it's a mess. Um, but
Welcome
yeah,
to live content.
live content. Um, Look, we're talking G Money. We've talked about some other stuff in the space. One, I want to circle back to maybe like the market in general. I think that's a good place to get your opinion because you're pretty much one of those people who lives online and lives on the chain. Um, Currently Bitcoin has been moving all over the place during this chat. We started at 102,000. At one point we were down until 101 and we just went up into about 104,000. So Jay Powell's doing his thing and
I
obviously
take it
the
that
market is
yeah,
reacting
market reaction.
as we speak. Other charts though that we have pulled up, Pengu currently down to about 16 cents, up a little bit off of its 15 cent or 1.5 cent and 1.6 cent lows, which actually brings the market, the FDV under a billion. And we also have a lot of other interesting token movements, AI16Z, virtuals, the AI sector absolutely getting slammed. Meme coins absolutely getting slammed with stuff like Mog down 70% from highs. What's your take here?
No, that's
What are you looking at? What do you think people should be looking at? Show your bags a little bit. I'd love to hear your take.
well, so I think broadly, the market is like I said earlier on, it's in a weird spot because like we're percentage points off of Bitcoin all-time high, but like sentimentally, we're at a very,
I've never
strange,
I've never seen the price versus sentiment like ever this
so
imbalance.
askew.
It's so
Yeah.
askew.
And at the same time, I think that's more a representation of people's, bags,
Mm.
that there's a lot of people hyper exposed to complete garbage, like you look at meme coins as a leverage of the major and majors as a leverage on, USD. Um, they're like real shitcoin trend, like pump fund type stuff
Yep.
is the hyper extreme of like just on-chain degeneracy and gambling. And I think that a majority of the timeline is, probably just engaging on chain a majority of their portfolio in, a photon or something, phantom, whatever. And that most of their portfolio is represented in these meme coins that are just getting absolutely slaughtered. You look at a majority of the timeline, it's clear that they didn't buy Bitcoin at the lows, that their portfolio is not up, whatever multiple since then. Um, and like I'm in that group of like uh, I'm up, but I'm not nearly as up as the sentiment, the screenshots that you see every day of the 10,000%, couple $100 to. I heard Bryson's clip from the other day of like 500 to 50K in a matter of hours. You hear those or see those on the timeline every day, but the reality is that like that's like winning the lottery. Like, is it possible? Yes, absolutely. But I think that for a lot of people, hitting those like more consistent, 2x's, 5x's, having accumulating a portfolio of bags that you truly believe in, whether that be in culture coins or majors or, wherever along that spectrum your own risk allows you to play. I'm a huge advocate for whatever helps you sleep at night, whatever that may mean for you. Um, that is a healthier perspective to approach the market. Uh, if for the extreme end of the spectrum, if you've got a couple grand and you're throwing a couple $100 at shitters hoping to hit the lottery, have lottery expectations
Yep.
that most of them are going to be absolutely worthless
Yep.
across a long enough time horizon, and that you need to play those games accordingly. Um, Medium to long term, I'm incredibly bullish. I think that the incoming administration has very boldly shown and stated that they're going to be leaning into more pro crypto uh, policy. And the part that I think goes less discussed about that is that that very likely means that we'll have businesses in the United States being more risk on in their development, and you talk about like innovation and things of that sort, that will have more innovation in like US based companies than we've seen in previous years, where it felt like it was very stifled by the regulation by enforcement kind of regime. Um, so that part I'm particularly excited for, because it's less hoops to jump through. It's uh less abstracting through via like foundation models and all this kind of sort. It's like, no, let the businesses develop, let take the metaphorical chains off, right? And being able to let these builders build with less restrictions, less overhead, less worrying about the bullseye on their back. um and that is incredibly bullish, medium to long term.
Yep. Yeah. I think having some clarity, and I think the tailwind of
Regulatory clarity? What? Like, we
like
haven't we haven't
again,
known what that
how are
means.
you how are you not bullish? Like, you literally have the president, one of the most powerful people in the entire world, launching meme coins and endorsing it and buying Ethereum and Bitcoin, and talking about launching, even though it's an Aave clone, launching services that are around, lending and loans and collateralization in the space. Like, I, I look back to when Visa said that they had bought a crypto punk, and I remember the floor like doubled in like 3 hours. It was insane. It was like pandemonium. I remember sitting in my living room in Newport News, Virginia, losing my fucking mind. Everybody was like, or God forbid, fucking when Odell Beckham changed his PFP to a crypto punk. That was insane. I think our Visa might have even bought Bitcoin, and it was sending like, there were such minuscule things that like sent the market higher. And now you have the president of the United States talking about Bitcoin, Ethereum, crypto, meme coins, and you're not like, and it's like crickets. It's crickets.
Well, and I don't want to get too into the politics side of things, but for me personally, again, it goes back to time horizon, that most people are working or trading on like minutes and hours, where a majority of my time horizon, like I have part of my portfolio that I'm still trading meme coins, I'm still jumping into pump funds and stuff like that, but like it's a minuscule percentage of my overall portfolio. A little bit more into some of like the protocol based stuff, culture coins, things of that nature, and then further, or closer in, more of the majors and things like that. But for me, I've come to the realization I am not, a KBM. I'm not a Wizard of Soho. I'm not the day trader. It's not my strength. It's not where I spend my time. Um, and kudos to KBM, because like he fairly maybe not regularly, but like when he goes bearish on the timeline, I view it through the lens of this is a person playing a very different game than I am.
Hmm.
He's working on a time horizon that like he can capitalize on those market movements where I'm looking, on a much longer time horizon. I know he does too, but like, in general, very broadly speaking, that like for my own portfolio, I'm looking at, months to years. Where do I think the market's going to be moving? And that like I don't necessarily have to check those charts every day. For me, I think that's like a healthier place that I've come to find uh, more balance, maybe not perfect balance, but
Sure.
more balance in my life of not having to, panic check charts every day or like wake up in the middle of the night in cold sweats. Um, and so for me, it's placing my bets around where I think I see the market moving, uh, reevaluating where my bags are to God forbid you have to take some profit off the table.
Right. I think more
Um,
people need to take profit.
well, I mean that's the objective, right? Is like to make money, but then like I think the goal then is like, okay, well, where do you put that money? Do you keep it in dollars? Do you have it staked to earn, a certain percent on that USDC? Do you have it on chain or off chain? Do you rotate it into treasury bonds or the stock market? Um, I think for a lot of people in this space, especially the younger crowd, where like they might hit a home run and then for the very first time in their life have money, a significant sum of money. It's like, okay, well, what now? It's like, okay, well, 30% for taxes off the top,
Yep.
putting that into stables, maybe staking it somewhere so you're, still earning some percentage on that. Being able to, rotate some of that into safer majors that you think still, perform well in the medium to long term. And then maybe you keep some to, hyper gamble with. But I think a lot of people are just either are completely gambling their bags away to where like you hit a home run and then you're back to zero
You're back to 0. Yep.
or round tripping their bags entirely. The amount of friends that I had from 21 that ended up owing like absolutely printing through NFT season and ended up owing more in taxes than their bags were worth. Um, it's painful, but like that's a really, really strong lesson to try and learn from so you don't have to experience it yourself.
Yeah. I have to echo that. It's such a dangerous space if you're not paying attention to the taxes. Even seen on the timeline, a few people post about Pengu claims where they claimed like $250,000. And they claimed that last year. So that's due in, a few months. And that $250,000 today, after that claim, is worth half, or less, actually, possibly. And if you're kind of taking that all into consideration, all of a sudden now they're upside down. They owe money for a claim. I think it's broken. I completely disagree with how it's being handled by the government, but you know that's the game we're in, and you gotta play by it and pay the Pied Piper.
Your jurisdiction may vary, but at least for us.
But yeah, exactly, for U.S. based people.
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious on, again, the more on like the market outlook. How do you see, because it's been a big topic, the AI side of things playing into to Web3?
Um, I think that well, there's a couple great takes that I think I've heard, across the show from uh, Justin when you were talking to him, Cry Barat, um, Bryson's had some good takes, but like I think broadly, one thing that's like resonated with me is a lot of it is complete garbage.
Hmm.
That like there is legitimate good work being done around agentic models and stuff like that. That a lot of the novel developments in and around the open source space are really cool. Are there reasons why it needs to be tokenized aside from speculation? For a majority of them, not really, until we get into the secure enclave conversations and stuff like that, where they're like true on-chain agents performing their own actions, not just, this partnership with a human that's, committing the on-chain actions for them type stuff. So with that in mind, I'm particularly mindful of where I'm placing my bets there because I think we saw a ridiculous run up where like anything like you could attach AI to anything and it was basically like a chat GPT fucking LLM on the back end, plug in. And they ran to, how many hundreds of millions of dollars in market cap.
Yep.
It wasn't sustainable. Do I think that there are true, like novel developments being made in that direction that will inevitably become, a vertical that is very valuable and noteworthy? Absolutely. I think that the open source development side of uh, AI development is incredibly bullish, and the fact that doing so on chain creates this like value accrual system to where you can monetarily incentivize and drive development in that direction that perhaps in web 2 wouldn't be there, I think is very cool. Like that's one of the things where I think that like this is an avenue that we can properly reward developers to go in the direction that we're hoping,
Right.
um outside of, the traditional web 2 models, and that it really does create some niches that like otherwise just wouldn't be developed. It is too costly, too time intensive, and it allows for a lot of experimentation. One of the things that like I've really been uh, vocal or supporter of is like the composability of these open source systems. That there's a lot of the open source development space, the collaborative environments that um, it's not these kind of monolithic sort of verticals. Like,
Mm.
yes, you have the virtuals, the AI16Zs, like some of these platforms, um, but at the same time, like the open source composability of like the just how do I want to phrase this? Um, the composability of these structures of being able to develop in the direction of true on-chain agentic uh, kind of ecosystems, especially when we start talking swarms and things like that. I think that there's a real likelihood that we'll end up seeing more activity on chain performed via agents than people. Like there's a non-zero likelihood that this is the last cycle that humans have a real edge over everything else.
Correct.
Where like very likely within, call it, the next 5 to 10 years, um, it's agents and swarms performing most of the actions, just done via texts, text inputs, voice to speech, or voice to text type inputs. Like, hey, take my, whatever USDC, convert to this, stake it here. I think it's a very, very weird space that's only going to get weirder.
Yep.
And like that's both incredibly exciting and also like terrifying.
Terrifying. Yep. I think it is a good balance of like excited, like I'm excited, but at the same time, like I think it's hard to quantify mentally like what because we're just not programmed to understand that there's all of a sudden we aren't the best and we aren't gonna be like we're gonna have to rely that and know that there's other systems out there that are just smarter, faster, quicker, adopting, and just the operation of how we approach many different things, not only crypto and Web3, but many other disciplines and industries are going to change very rapidly.
Yeah.
Um, you
But
just gotta
the
understand.
fact that we're alive, like, I'm grateful to be in a place and, like, living in a time where we get to experience that.
Yep.
Like, our kids or, like, grandkids will look back and say, like, "You lived in a time where it wasn't that way." Like, that's gonna be, like, one of those things where it's, like, living before cell phones and
Yep.
stuff like that. Like, pre-agents on chain is going to be, like, one of those kind of moments.
Yeah, you had to sign every transaction you did. You had to like that. It's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be like
Oh,
little
yeah.
things like that. I
Well, yeah, even in and around gaming too. Like, agents in gaming are going to be a game changer. Like, we already have programmed, AI characters and stuff like that engaging, in video games.
right.
But when it gets to the point that, like, they are like a nondescript from human interaction, that will be very, very interesting. And I think it, like, again, only gets weirder.
It, I'm excited for it though. I'm excited.
It's
Um,
inevitable.
it's
That is
inevitable.
where we're going.
VGF, I'm curious. I want to make sure that everybody who has been listening and paying attention knows where to find you and can tune into the content you have planned. I'm curious if you could shed some light onto what you have planned on the content side as well. Um, as always, I love talking to you, and I'm excited for what you're about to do in the space on that content front.
Thank you, man. Likewise, so people that are wanting to follow along, my handles at the bottom here: VGFREAKXBL, video game freak on other platforms. I will be venturing back into YouTube content as well as revisiting a lot of the spaces. I think that my kind of thing is I really want to highlight a lot of my friends that I think are brilliant, that I think, I truly enjoy speaking with, and deserve to have a platform and be highlighted, that may not get as much attention on the timeline. I firmly believe that if you, like, put the right people into a room together, no matter what they talk about, it's going to be interesting. So I'm going to try and foster and host a lot more of those kinds of conversations. And then videogamefreak.com, my reading list from back in the day. Uh,
Is there a book that you highly recommend people should read right now? I have one sitting here on the desk that I shilled
ooh,
last night. I picked up Saquon Barkley's Inner Excellence book.
let me see what I got here.
I will
Hold on.
hard shill that. I haven't read it yet, but look, anybody who can run the ball like Saquon, I want to read what that man's reading. Uh,
I'm like seeing what I got on the floor here. What are some recents? Oh, so Vitalik's Proof of Stake. I think just like,
I didn't even know he had a book.
yeah. So that one just for, like, the philosophy in and around the development of Ethereum, I think was, like, very interesting. Um, Not necessarily like Web3 oriented, but range.
Great book.
Uh,
Have read it.
yeah, generalists triumph in a specialized world. That's kind of like a little bit of how I view myself, of, like, I'm not hyper specifically strong in any one category, but, like, my breadth of knowledge and understanding allows me to make connections that others may not,
Yep.
or whether that be in relationships, the market, or otherwise. Um, but yeah, I've been doing a lot of reading, like, online, as, like, not even so much as, like, books, but like, getting into the weeds of, I think 6529's been putting out a lot more like thread style content again lately, which I love to see. Um and, like, even video content. I think that there's, some incredible creators that are putting out a lot of really great quality content on X. So, like, whatever your preferred format, whether it's, like, podcasts, video, text, I'm a huge proponent for people creating their own reading lists. Like, it wasn't until after I made my, like, Notion, my suggested reading list, that I realized how much value people got from it. It wasn't, like, until much, much later that people told me, like, that they got a lot of value out of it. I wish I had kept going with it at the time. But at the time, I was pouring a lot of time and work into it, and not hearing anything of like that people found it valuable. Um, but I'll be revisiting that. I'll be updating it, to more of the current state of the market, development on chain and things like that. Um, but I would suggest people do it for themselves, like document what has helped you along your journey, what interests you along the way. A lot of people told me how much value that they got out of my reading list. Well, that's viewed through my lens. Like for an artist or an engineer or, a content creator, that it may be a very different reading list that is valuable to you, that comes across your feed, that, you find online. And so I am a huge proponent for people doing that for themselves, not only to document for yourself, but then, to share with others. And for sake of argument, you might have the next hot reading list that people are getting value from. So
I have quite the extensive library here at Chateau Aurel that I have built over the last 2 years. I would say we're approaching about 500 books, um, in that, which I'm proud to say most of them have been read cover to cover. And I think it's I'm no Ty Lopez. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, look at all this knowledge. But I do think there are many books within that have been fundamental in how I approach not only the market but life and mentality and understanding how I want to operate not only as a businessman or a trader but also as a human. I think that's all important. Um, I
well,
yeah
and sometimes it's nice to like just getting a good old hardback, and like getting offline for a little while.
Yep. I
Um,
I think being able to have a place that centers you outside of the screen and the timeline and the chain and the charts is important.
mm,
And that might not be a book, but you need to have that thing. It could be cutting the grass for all I care. But if you have a place you can go, and I actually think cutting the grass, if you have like a big yard, because I have to cut the grass at my house takes about 9
it's an
hours,
endeavor.
9 10 hours. Yeah, the chateau's a fun place to live, but not when the grass needs to be cut. Um, I mean, I zen out. That I would consider that my sister activity to reading, which I just sit there and I've got headphones in and I just no music, just I will think for hours on end. And I think that's a good place to just again, I don't have any outside conversation with me. I'm not being influenced by a KOL on the timeline or a scary chart. I am having a conversation with myself. I think that's go on a hike. People need a hike. I believe you're a pro hiker, VGF
Maybe
from what
not
I've
pro.
go no, I mean
No,
like you're
no,
a
like
proponent of
for
it.
me,
Go on a
it's
drive.
like
Get
whatever
gra-
that place or state of mind is
yeah.
for you,
Get
whether
your
it's like
car keys out, back the car out of the garage, and go drive some back roads. No, and just
going for a drive is one of mine.
that is yeah. I,
Yeah.
I'm a huge advocate for the, like, afternoon drive after a long day and you might be feeling a little bit, just get in the car and go drive. Um, I've been known to do that little coffee run. It's important.
Yeah. But
Uh,
yeah, whether it's meditation or like a physical place, where you can find that state of zen, yeah, like meditation, reading a book, ice bath, whatever, like sauna, whatever it means for you, finding that place where you can like find that state of mind, of presence aside from like the chaos that is social media and on chain. I think it's incredibly powerful to have that like break in the just perpetually online. Like I'm just about as online as anyone, probably arguably to an unhealthy state. But still it's like incredibly important for me to like have that place or that state of mind where I can pull back and disengage for a couple hours, just to help balance. Finding balance, I don't think is ever like It's a pendulum,
It is.
metronome always.
It is.
But striving for balance, I think is the goal there.
It's again, and very responsible, and I think it's not popular to talk about this, but it needs to be talked about. And so I'm grateful that we have somebody like you in our corner, and at least in our ears, telling us that it's worth the time, and it's not a bunch of crap. It's actually important to be able to deal with the crazy world that we are all.
Well, if you want to be here for long enough, right? Like,
Yeah,
because if you don't, you'll inevitably burn out. There's no avoiding it. But like, I think for you, you resonate with that probably very strongly as well. Of like, if you want to be here for a while, you want to grow, develop, play in the space for any significant amount of time. You need to have that anchor to not just burn out after 6 months, a year plus. Anybody that's been here for any significant amount of time, I think has those stories of like true burnout stories,
yep, yeah,
um where you just need that reset, and if you don't get it on a fairly regular basis, it's going to crash. And trying to, again, maybe not find balance, but strive for a healthier balance, enables you to keep playing the game and survive long enough to hopefully, find that success that you're looking for.
exactly. I'm glad. I'm glad we had this conversation. It's gonna help somebody else out there. And as always, if you're struggling, if you feel like you're in a spot you don't have anybody to talk to, feel free to reach out to myself. Um, I think I would have loved to have somebody to reach out to and chat with, and I'm open. If you're listening to this and taking the time to listen to this, I'm appreciative of that to the point of being there to lend an ear. VGF, I gotta thank you again, man, for the time and coming on and chatting. I it was long overdue, long overdue.
A little
Um,
bit. I mean, we've chatted a little bit along
yeah,
the way, but we definitely will have to do it a little more publicly more often.
we'll do it. We'll do it again. The ones that a lot of these are like one-off things, and I bring on people, but you are going to be a recurring guest and face alongside all the content I'm doing over the next year, and I'm excited for what you have in store as well. Um, and obviously, I think people should go check it out and make sure that they're following you to not miss it.
Appreciate you, man.
Of course. Thanks everybody for tuning in to another one. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.